Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Have you ever been so close to someone that the air itself felt different? Like the space between your bodies carried a secret neither of you dared to say out loud. That night started innocently, at least, that's what we told ourselves. We were sitting on his couch, the city lights pouring through the window in soft gold streaks. Music hummed low in the background, something slow and familiar. I was curled up on his lap, facing him, my fingers absent-mindedly playing with the buttons of his shirt. It was a habit I'd picked up over months of knowing him, months of lingering glances, accidental touches that lasted a second too long, conversations that felt like they had layers underneath the words. We were both well into our 20s, old enough to know better, but young enough to pretend we didn't. He'd always had this calm presence, steady hands, steady voice. The kind of man who could hold eye contact just long enough to make you question your breathing. That night, though, there was something different in the way his hands rested on my waist. Not tighter. Not urgent. Just aware. "You're quiet tonight," he said, his thumb brushing slow circles against my hip. "Am I?" I teased, keeping my eyes on the collar of his shirt, sliding one button loose just to feel the warmth of his skin beneath. Our relationship had always lived in that in-between space. We weren't officially anything. Friends, technically. But friends don't sit this close. Friends don't feel the shift in the room when their laughter fades into silence. The chemistry had been building for weeks, every shared ride home, every late-night conversation about nothing and everything. It wasn't sudden. It was inevitable. My knees tightened slightly at his sides. His breath changed. Subtle. Controlled. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere in the apartment upstairs, someone laughed. Life went on like normal. And that's the strangest part. Because in that small space between us, something was changing, something unspoken, something that felt both reckless and long overdue. His fingers slipped under the hem of my top, warm against my skin, and I felt my pulse echo in my ears. We didn't stop talking. We didn't move away. We just stayed there, pretending nothing had shifted, until he leaned closer and whispered something that made my entire body go still. His voice was low when he leaned in, close enough that I felt the warmth of his breath against my ear. "You're dangerous when you're quiet," he murmured. I swallowed, still holding the edge of his shirt between my fingers. "I'm not doing anything. That's the problem." I finally looked at him then. Really looked at him. The faint shadow of stubble along his jaw. The way his eyes didn't wander, they stayed right on mine, steady, unblinking. We had known each other for almost a year. It started at a friend's birthday dinner, one of those loud nights where everyone talks over each other. He'd been the calm one at the end of the table, half smiling like he was watching a private joke unfold. Somehow, we'd kept choosing each other after that. Late-night calls that stretched past midnight. Coffee runs that turned into long drives with no destination. We learned the small things first, how he takes his tea without sugar, how I hum when I'm nervous. Then the heavier things, his last relationship that ended quietly but left cracks, my fear of getting too attached and losing control. We never labeled what we were. But nights like this didn't feel like friendship. My fingers slid from his shirt buttons to the fabric over his chest, flattening my palm there. I could feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. He noticed. Of course he did. His hands, resting on my waist, shifted slightly, not pulling me closer, just anchoring me there. "You remember that night on the rooftop?" I asked softly. "The one where you said you don't mix emotions with attraction." His mouth curved at the corner. I was trying to be smart. And now? The room felt smaller somehow. The music in the background had changed to something slower, heavier with bass. I became hyper-aware of everything, the warmth of his thighs beneath me, the quiet rise and fall of his breathing, the way my own body reacted to the closeness. I don't think we've ever just been smart, I admitted. His thumb brushed along the curve of my waist again, a slow, absent gesture that sent a ripple through me. Not rushed. Not demanding. Just present. Outside, the city continued like nothing was happening. But inside that apartment, something delicate and electric hovered between us. Months of glances, almost moments, restrained touches, they were all here, crowding the space. His forehead dipped until it almost touched mine. Say the word, he whispered. And for a second, I realized I might. His words didn't fade after he said them. They stayed there, hovering between us. Say the word. It should have been simple. Yes or no. Stay or move. But it wasn't just about the moment. It was about everything behind it. Because this wasn't just tension built on attraction. It was history. You know, this makes it complicated, I said quietly, though I didn't move away. A slow breath left him. It's already complicated. He wasn't wrong. We shared the same circle of friends. We worked in the same building, different departments, but close enough that rumors traveled fast. And then there was Mia. Not his girlfriend. Not officially. But someone he'd been seeing casually a few months ago before ending it. The air quotes had been mine when he told me. She still texts you, I said, my voice softer than I intended. He didn't deny it. I don't answer. That's not the same thing. His jaw tightened slightly. Not defensive, just thoughtful. You think I'd be sitting here like this if I was still halfway somewhere else? That question landed deeper than I expected. The truth was, I wasn't afraid of Mia. I was afraid of myself. I'd built walls around my feelings for years, short relationships, no labels, no risk. He was the first person who made me want to lean in instead of step back. That loss of control scared me more than gossip or blurred boundaries. You're not casual to me, he said suddenly. I blinked. You've never said that. You've never asked. The room felt warmer. My fingers tightened slightly against his chest. His hands slid higher along my back, slow and deliberate, stopping just beneath my shoulder blades. Every movement felt intentional now. Measured. Like we were testing gravity. You're the one who said we should keep it light, he reminded me gently. I was protecting myself. From me. From what happens after. Silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It pulsed. He shifted slightly beneath me, adjusting his posture, and the subtle movement sent another wave of awareness through my body. My breath hitched before I could stop it. His eyes darkened, not aggressive, not rushed, just honest. This isn't just physical, he said. If it was, it would have happened months ago. He was right. We'd had opportunities. Late nights. Closed doors. Excuses. But we'd always stopped. Until now. His thumb traced the curve of my jaw, tilting my face up just enough. If we cross this line, he said quietly, we don't get to pretend it's nothing. My pulse thundered in my ears. And instead of answering, I leaned closer, close enough that our lips almost touched. The space between our mouths felt charged, like the moment before lightning splits the sky. I could feel his breath. Slow. Controlled. Waiting. My hand slid from his chest to the back of his neck, fingers threading lightly into his hair. I wasn't thinking anymore. I wasn't calculating consequences or replaying warnings in my head. I was reacting, to him, to the months of tension that had been tightening like a drawn wire. You're shaking, he whispered, his lips barely brushing the corner of mine. I'm not, I said softly. You are. His hands moved again, this time more firmly along my back, pulling me closer until there was no space left between us. My body fit against his like it had been rehearsed. The warmth of him, the steady strength beneath my palms, it made it harder to remember why we'd been holding back. The music in the background faded into something distant and irrelevant. The only rhythm I could hear now was the uneven sync of our breathing. "I need you to be sure," he said, though his voice was rougher now. "I am." But even as I said it, I knew what he meant. Not just sure about the kiss. Not just sure about tonight. Sure about what this would change. Because once this line disappeared, we couldn't redraw it. His forehead pressed against mine again, slower this time. Intentional. His thumb traced the curve of my lower lip, not teasing, studying. Like he was memorizing the exact shape before giving in. "You don't get to disappear after this," he said quietly. "No pulling back. No pretending it was just tension." My pulse pounded harder at that. He wasn't asking for a moment. He was asking for something real. My knees tightened instinctively at his sides. I felt him exhale sharply at the subtle shift. The air thickened. Every tiny movement felt magnified, the brush of fabric, the warmth of skin through thin layers of clothing, the way my fingers pressed into him without meaning to. "I'm not running," I said, my voice barely above a breath. His eyes searched mine, as if looking for the smallest flicker of doubt. Whatever he saw there made his expression change, resolve replacing restraint. His hand slid from my jaw to my waist, fingers curling slightly as he held me steady. I could feel the shift in him, the last thread of hesitation unraveling. The world outside the apartment kept moving, unaware. Inside, everything narrowed to this. His lips hovered a fraction closer. And just before they finally touched, his lips were almost on mine. Almost. And then, his phone buzzed. The sound cut through the room like glass shattering. We both froze. It buzzed again. Persistent. Insistent. His jaw tightened, but he didn't look away from me. "Ignore it," I whispered, though my heart was pounding for a different reason now. It buzzed a third time. He exhaled slowly, his forehead still pressed to mine. It might be important. I leaned back just enough for him to reach into his pocket. The movement created space between us, cool air rushing where warmth had been. I instantly missed it. He glanced at the screen. And something in his expression shifted. Not guilt. Not exactly. Complication. "Who is it?" I asked, though I already knew. He hesitated half a second too long. "Mia." Of course. The name settled into the space between us like a weight. I slid off his lap slowly, my feet touching the floor but my knees still brushing his. The distance felt louder than the ringtone had. He declined the call. Immediately, a message preview lit up the screen. "Can we talk?" "I'm outside." My stomach dropped. "Outside." I repeated. He stood up now, running a hand through his hair, pacing once across the small living room. I followed him with my eyes, arms folding instinctively across my chest, not defensive, just bracing. "I didn't tell her to come," he said quickly. "I haven't spoken to her in weeks. But she's here." Another buzz. Another message. He didn't open it. I walked toward the window, heart racing. The curtains were only half drawn. I shifted them slightly, just enough to see the street below. There it was. Her car. Headlights off. Engine still running. "She's really here," I said quietly. Behind me, I felt him step closer, not touching this time, just near enough that I could feel the heat of him again. "This is exactly why we kept stopping," I said. "Because nothing about this is clean." He didn't argue. But he also didn't step away. "You think I want her?" he asked, his voice low but steady. "That's not the point." "What is the point then?" I turned to face him. The tension hadn't disappeared, it had sharpened. Now it wasn't just desire pulling at us. It was risk. Reputation. The possibility of someone seeing us through the window. Of her coming upstairs. You don't get to choose both, I said. You don't get to leave things unfinished with her and start something with me. He stepped closer now, closing the space again. His hands didn't touch me, but they hovered near my waist, restrained. I already chose, he said. You just won't believe me. Another knock. Not on his phone this time. On the door. 3 sharp raps that echoed through the apartment. We both went still. The world outside had finally caught up with us. He looked at me, eyes dark, intense, not just with want now, but with decision. The knock came again, louder. And this time, he didn't move toward the door. He moved toward me. The knock echoed again. 3 sharp raps. Closer. Real. He didn't look at the door this time. He looked at me. In that split second, everything we'd been circling for months became brutally clear. This wasn't just about attraction. It wasn't about chemistry or late-night tension or the way my body reacted when he touched me. It was about choosing. Another knock. Louder. She deserves an answer, I said, my voice steady even though my pulse wasn't. I know. His jaw tightened. And so do you. For a moment, I thought he would walk past me and open the door. End the suspense. Handle the unfinished chapter. Instead, he reached for my hand. Not my waist. Not my neck. My hand. His fingers intertwined with mine, grounding, deliberate. I should have closed that door weeks ago, he said. I kept avoiding it because I didn't want confrontation. Not because I wanted her. The knocking stopped. Silence replaced it, heavy, waiting. I won't start something real with you while something else is still lingering, he continued. But I'm not losing you because I was afraid to be clear. My throat tightened. The intimacy in that moment was stronger than any almost kiss. It wasn't heat. It was decision. He squeezed my hand once, then finally stepped away and walked toward the door. Every step felt amplified. I stayed where I was, near the window, my heart racing. I could hear the faint shift of the lock turning. The door opening. Muted voices filled the hallway. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught enough. You can't just show up like this. Needed closure, there's nothing left to fix. Silence. Then his voice again, firmer. I'm choosing someone else. My breath caught. A few seconds later, the door closed. The lock clicked again. He stood there for a moment, his back against the door, eyes closed briefly as if steadying himself. When he looked at me, something had changed. No more hesitation. No unfinished threads. He crossed the room slowly this time, no rush, no urgency, just intention. When he reached me, his hands settled on my waist again, familiar but different now. It's done, he said. The air between us shifted back to that electric pull, but now it carried clarity. No shadows. No interruptions waiting downstairs. I searched his face for doubt. I didn't find any. You're sure? I asked. I've never been more sure. And just as he leaned in, finally closing the distance we'd been holding for what felt like forever, my phone buzzed. I froze. He stilled too. I glanced down at the screen. A name I hadn't expected to see. And suddenly, the choice wasn't only his anymore. I stared at the name glowing on my screen. He didn't ask who it was. He just watched my face carefully, like he'd just handed me something fragile and was waiting to see if I'd drop it. It's Daniel, I said quietly. My unfinished chapter. The person I'd kept loosely in my orbit because it felt safer than diving into something real. His hands slipped from my waist, not pulling away in anger, just giving me space. Are you going to answer? He asked. The question wasn't jealous. It was honest. For a split second, I imagined stepping away, taking the call in the hallway, keeping my options open the way I always had. Keeping things balanced. Uncommitted. Untouched by risk. But the room still held the echo of what had just happened. He had chosen. Publicly. Clearly. Without hesitation. I declined the call. The silence that followed wasn't tense anymore. It was steady. I don't want half connections, I admitted, setting my phone down on the table. I don't want backup plans. I don't want almost. He stepped closer again, slower this time. Then what do you want? I reached for him first. I want the thing that scares me. A soft exhale left him, almost a laugh, almost relief. His hands returned to my waist, but now they felt different, not testing, not tentative. Certain. You realize, he murmured, brushing his thumb lightly along my cheek, this is where everything changes. I know. And I did. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a fireworks, movie scene way. But in a quiet, grounded way. The kind where two people decide to stop pretending. He leaned in, and this time there were no phones buzzing. No knocks at the door. No unfinished stories waiting outside. When our lips finally met, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't explosive. It was steady. Intentional. Months of tension softened into something warmer, deeper. His hand slid gently along my back, holding me close as if memorizing the shape of this decision. I felt myself relax into him in a way I hadn't allowed before. No pretending. No pretending nothing changed. Because everything had. When we pulled back, foreheads resting together again, the city lights still flickered beyond the window. The world hadn't paused for us. But inside that room, we had finally chosen something real. And this time, neither of us was going to step away.